Be me, 25, grad student, sociology program. I've been told my whole life that men are dangerous, and honestly, my own experiences never gave me a reason to doubt it. It started with my mom, single mother, raising me alone after my dad left when I was barely 5. Every fight they had before the divorce, she framed as proof. Men lie, men cheat, men run. She'd always say, never depend on a man, they'll let you down every time. That was her mantra, and then my own dating history just poured gasoline on that fire. My first boyfriend in college cheated on me with some random from his dorm, and I only found out because her underwear got mixed up with my laundry one weekend. Second one was the stereotypical nice guy who blew up at me after 2 months because I wasn't putting out fast enough. Third one ghosted me after 3 months. The pattern was so clear it was basically a punchline. Men were predators or selfish manipulators. They just wore different costumes. So when I got my grad housing assignment email saying I'd be rooming with a man? Yeah. No. My heart sank. I immediately called housing, told them there had to be a mistake. But no. Housing shortage, too many grad students, gender separation rules don't apply. I begged, even offered to pay extra. They said there was nothing they could do, so I told myself it'd only be temporary. A month or 2 max. I just had to survive it. Keep my door locked, keep my guard up, avoid him at all costs. The first time I met him, I was already in defensive mode. He introduced himself in this calm, low voice. Hey, I'm Ethan. He had this way of talking, straightforward, no forced friendliness, no eye contact that lingered too long. Still, in my head, alarm bells were blaring. I'd read enough horror stories about quiet guys being the most dangerous. Ted Bundy was charming. Jeffrey Dahmer was quiet. I wasn't going to be fooled. I made sure to set boundaries right away. I claimed the bigger cupboard in the kitchen, labeled every grocery item with post-its, not yours, and taped a note on the bathroom mirror. Please respect shared spaces. I wanted him to know I wasn't one of those clueless girls who let men walk all over them. He didn't comment. He just glanced at the note once while brushing his teeth, shrugged, and kept going. That was unsettling. Was it indifference or calculation? Like he was making mental notes for later? That first night, I was paranoid as hell. I double-locked my door, shoved a chair under the handle, and sat in bed listening. Every creak in the hallway made my chest tighten. My brain spun scenarios. What if he tried to come in? What if he drugged my food? What if he just waited until I let my guard down? But morning came. My door was untouched. When I peeked out, Ethan was already gone for class. The kitchen was spotless. His shoes were lined up neatly by the door. Trash had been taken out. Weird. I told myself it was all an act. That's what predators did. They played nice until they saw an opening. A few days later, I had my first confirmation. I heard metallic rattling right by my door one night. My chest started pounding. I grabbed my lamp, ready to swing, thinking this is it. He's trying to break in. I yanked the door open, ready to scream, and saw Ethan crouched down with a screwdriver. "What the hell are you doing?" I snapped. He looked up, a little startled. "Oh, the hinge on your door squeaks. I was just tightening it." I froze, lamp in hand, face burning. He was literally fixing my door. Still, I couldn't admit I'd overreacted. "Don't sneak around my door like that," I said, trying to sound firm. "Yeah, sorry. Didn't mean to freak you out," he said simply, stood up and walked away. No snark, no smirk, just fixed it and moved on. That was almost worse than if he'd made some comment, because in my head, men were supposed to fight back, push boundaries, test limits. Instead, he just respected mine. By the end of the first week, my brain was tangled. I thought I'd be dodging dirty laundry piles, wiping up after his messes, or swatting away creepy remarks. Instead, Ethan was basically invisible. He went to class, came home, cooked quietly, cleaned up, and disappeared into his room. And that annoyed me, because if he wasn't doing the stereotypical guy stuff I expected, where was my proof? Where was the evidence that I was right about men being terrible to live with? I kept telling myself it was only a matter of time. The mask always slips eventually. It had to. By the start of the second week, I had a whole list of things Ethan had done wrong. Except if I actually looked at it, none of them were really wrong. They were just male, Like one afternoon, I came home from campus and heard the dryer running. I opened it and saw his clothes still inside. Jeans, t-shirts, some gym stuff. My first thought, of course. He expects me to move it for him. I rolled my eyes, muttering to myself about male entitlement, and went back to my room. But the next day, when I forgot my laundry in the dryer for almost 2 hours, I came out to find it folded neatly in a basket outside my door. I just stood there staring at it. He didn't say a word about it. No note, no, you're welcome, nothing. Just did it and went on with his day. It made me irrationally angry, because I couldn't figure out his angle. Was he trying to score nice guy points? Was it passive-aggressive? Who does something like that with no commentary? Later that week, we ended up in the kitchen at the same time for the first time. I was making pasta. He was chopping vegetables. It was awkward, the kind of silence where you can hear every clink of the knife against the board. Then he asked, "Hey, what time do you usually cook? I can try to work around it so we're not tripping over each other." I froze. In my head, that question sounded controlling, like he was scheduling me. I gave him this tight smile. "You don't have to work around me. I can handle sharing a kitchen." He blinked. "Okay, I just didn't want to bother you." Then he turned back to his cutting board like nothing happened. No defensiveness, no snark, just genuine neutrality. And somehow, that irritated me even more. The next day, he left a note on the fridge. "Out of eggs. I'll grab some later. Let me know if you need anything." I stared at it for a full minute, trying to decide if that was a subtle way of reminding me to contribute, or if he was just being decent. I couldn't tell anymore. That night, around 11 p.m., I heard movement in the hallway again. My stomach tightened automatically. Not this again. I peeked through the crack of my door and saw him standing on a stool, changing the smoke alarm batteries. When he noticed me, he startled. "Oh, sorry. Didn't mean to wake you." I muttered something about it being fine and shut my door quickly, but my face was hot again. Why did he keep doing that? Fixing things, quietly, like some sitcom dad. It was making it really hard to hate him. The next morning, I called my mom while walking to class. She immediately went into protective mode. "Sweetie, I don't like this," she said. "Men act polite until they don't. That's how they get you to drop your guard." "I know," I said, automatically, but it sounded weaker this time, like even I didn't believe it. Then later that day, my best friend from undergrad, Jess, FaceTimed me while I was cooking. I must have glanced toward the kitchen door because she squinted. "Wait, is that your roommate?" she whispered. "Yeah. He's making dinner or whatever." She leaned closer to the camera. "Girl, he's totally pretending." They all do that. It's like manipulation foreplay. Be careful, I laughed it off, but it didn't sit right. He wasn't even listening to us. He had headphones in, humming quietly while stirring something in a pan. It didn't look manipulative. It looked boring, normal. Later that night, I found myself replaying those tiny moments in my head. The laundry, the fridge note, the way he never raised his voice. He hadn't even looked at me longer than a few seconds. And that unsettled me for reasons I couldn't explain. I caught myself wondering what his story was. What kind of guy just lives that neatly, that quietly? Was he hiding something? Or was this actually who he was? I didn't like that thought, because if it was, then maybe the problem wasn't him. Maybe it was the way I was seeing him. And that was not a thought I was ready to deal with yet. I hadn't gone out with classmates in weeks, but by the third Friday of the semester, everyone was blowing up the group chat about getting drinks after seminar. I didn't want to be the only one missing, so I went. We ended up at a little place near campus that smelled like fryer oil and cheap perfume. The long table was packed with grad students, half my cohort, all of us still buzzing from finishing midterms. I sat between two of my usual friends, Maya and Erin, who both had the kind of energy that fills a room. The first round of drinks came, and with it, the gossip. Someone complained about her roommate leaving moldy dishes, another about a boyfriend who forgot her birthday. The laughter turned sharp. Maya nudged me. "You've got a guy roommate, right? How's that going? He started peeing on the seat yet?" I forced a smile. "Actually, no." "He's fine," Erin snorted. "Fine? You sound surprised?" I shrugged. I expected worse. Honestly, he's quiet, clean, keeps to himself. Across the table, Sam, one of the guys in our program, looked up from his drink. He had that dry, observant expression that always made people nervous. "Wait," he said. "Why does everyone act like a guy being decent is some kind of miracle?" The table went still for half a second. Maya laughed awkwardly. "Because Sam, most of you aren't." Sam smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "That's a nice blanket statement." He turned to me. "Do you actually believe that? That men are automatically a problem until proven otherwise?" I hesitated. My instinct was to say yes, the way I always had. But Ethan's face flickered in my head, folding my laundry, fixing that stupid squeaky hinge, quietly cooking while I tried to avoid him. "I just go by patterns," I said finally. "Experience. Patterns can come from who you choose to notice," Sam said. He wasn't being mean. His tone was even, like he was asking me to think instead of argue. "You ever wonder if expecting the worst just makes you see the worst?" Erin rolled her eyes. "Oh, here we go." "Not all men, right?" He shrugged. "No, not all anyone. I'm just saying, maybe it's unfair to act like we're all suspects in the same crime." The air around the table felt tight. Everyone went back to their fries, pretending not to listen. I took a sip of my drink, heart thumping. "I don't think you get it," I said quietly. "You don't know what it's like to walk home at night and wonder if you're safe." "I don't," he said, nodding. "You're right. But I do know what it's like to have people assume the worst about you before you open your mouth." That landed harder than I expected. He didn't push further, just leaned back and changed the subject to the new campus cafe. The conversation loosened up again, but I barely heard it. When I left later, the air outside was cold enough to sting. I walked home, replaying the exchange over and over. Sam hadn't raised his voice, hadn't tried to embarrass me. He'd just asked a question I didn't know how to answer without contradicting myself. When I reached the apartment, the hallway light was off. I unlocked the door as quietly as I could. The place smelled like garlic and butter. On the stove sat a covered pan with a sticky note. "Made too much pasta. Help yourself if you're hungry." I stood there for a long time, holding that note between my fingers. He didn't owe me that. He didn't even know I'd skipped dinner. I sat at the counter, eating a few bites straight from the pan, feeling something I hadn't felt around a man in a long time. Unguarded. Sam's voice echoed in my head. Maybe it's unfair to act like we're all suspects in the same crime. I wanted to argue with it. I really did. But I couldn't find the words. Then something happened that really made me question everything I believed my whole life. The strange thing was, in the days leading up to it, things had almost started to feel normal. Not comfortable, just less tense. Ethan and I had fallen into some kind of quiet rhythm. He cooked, I cleaned. We kept to ourselves. I wasn't relaxed exactly, but I wasn't watching my back every second either. Still, something in me stayed alert, that low hum of suspicion. I'd catch myself thinking, don't forget he's still a man. Just because he hasn't done anything doesn't mean he won't. Then I got the call. It was a Thursday night. I was sitting at the kitchen table, hunched over my laptop, editing citations. My phone buzzed. Aunt Rachel, she never called. I answered immediately. Her voice was shaky. "Sweetheart, your mum's been in an accident." My stomach dropped. "She's okay, stable, but they're taking her to county hospital. Might need surgery. They said if you can get there tonight, you should." My mom had been having weird spells for weeks. Dizziness, fatigue. She kept brushing it off, saying she was just tired. Now this. I started shaking. I grabbed my bag, keys, and phone and started calling Maya, voicemail, Erin, nothing, Jess, straight to missed call. They'd all told me, "Call me anytime, I'll always pick up." I believed them. When I got to the third unanswered call, I started crying. Quiet at first, then heavier. The kind that chokes in your throat and doesn't feel real. That's when Ethan's door opened. He stepped out, earbuds around his neck, brows drawn. "Hey, what happened?" I tried to wipe my face, but I was shaking. "My mom. Car accident. She's in the hospital, county. They said she might need surgery. I don't know how to get there." He looked at his phone, then back at me. "That's like 2.5 hours. I nodded, panicked. "Yeah. I'm trying to find a bus or something." "I'll drive you," he said, grabbing his jacket. "What?" "No, you don't have to do that." "I know. Come on." Let's go. He didn't wait for debate, he just moved. We were on the road in under 10 minutes, the dashboard lit up dim blue and the wipers working against a fine drizzle. I sat stiffly, hands clenched in my lap. My head was still spinning. About 20 minutes in, I broke the silence. Why are you being so nice? He didn't take his eyes off the road. What do you mean? I mean, what's your deal? What's the angle here? He glanced over, then back. No angle. You needed help. That's not how people usually work. He gave a small laugh, but it wasn't sarcastic. Maybe not the people you're used to. I hesitated. Seriously though, why? Why just drop everything and drive me across the state? He let that hang in the air a second before replying. You live in my space. We're not strangers. If something bad happened to you and I did nothing, I'd feel like garbage. That's it. No secret plan, no payoff. Just basic human decency. I didn't know what to say. The way he said it, not defensive, not dramatic, it landed harder than any argument. At the hospital, everything felt too bright and sterile. Nurses ushered me through. My mum was groggy but alert. Broken arm, mild concussion, stitches. When she saw me, her eyes welled up. You came, she whispered. Of course I came, I said, holding her hand. How are you feeling? She looked past me, noticing Ethan lingering by the door. Is that the young man who drove you? I nodded. She blinked, surprised. That was very kind of him. That's rare then to Ethan. Thank you, sweetheart. You didn't have to do that. He gave a small nod. Glad she got here safe. After that, he quietly handled everything. Parking, vending machine coffee, tracking down forms I didn't know I needed. He never hovered. He just stayed nearby, like this calm backup generator that kept everything running while I was short-circuiting. Around 2 a.m., when my mom finally fell asleep, I sat in the waiting area, completely drained. He was there too, stretched out in a chair, jacket folded under his head. My phone buzzed. Maya. OMG, I'm so sorry. I just saw your call. Are you okay? Aaron. Hey. Missed your call earlier. Everything all right? I stared at the screen. They'd said always, but when I needed them, they weren't there. Ethan, the guy I'd once labeled a threat, was the one who dropped everything. No delay, no excuses. I still can't believe you did all this, I said quietly. I still can't believe you're surprised, he said back. I looked over at him, not afraid, not suspicious, just quiet and grateful. No one had ever shown up for me like that. A week after the hospital trip, life slipped back into something that almost felt normal. My mom was recovering fine, Ethan was back to his quiet routines, and the apartment felt steady again. Then the email came. Subject: rooming adjustment. Per your previous request for a female roommate, we've arranged for your current roommate to be reassigned to Block C next week. I just stared at it. I'd forgotten I'd even filed that complaint the first week, back when I still slept with a chair wedged under the doorknob. When I looked up, Ethan was standing in the doorway, phone in hand. They just told me about the move, he said. Guess it's because you weren't comfortable? His voice was neutral, not hurt, but it still made my stomach twist. I'm sorry if I made it weird. I opened my mouth, closed it again. No, you didn't. It's fine. Maybe it's better this way. Safer for both of us. He gave a small nod. Yeah. Probably then, he smiled, polite, easy, and went back to his room. For the next few days he packed little by little, boxes stacked by the door, the hum of tape ripping. I kept pretending it was nothing. When he cooked, I waited until he was done. When he was in the living room, I stayed in my room. It felt like rewinding to the first week, except this time the silence hurt. The morning he left, I found him tightening the strap on one of his boxes. Need help? I asked. He shook his head. Got it. Elevator's open if you want to hold the door? I did. We rode down together in silence. At the curb, he turned. Take care, okay? Yeah, I said, forcing a small laugh. Guess it'll be nice not tripping over each other. Guess so. He smiled again, the same quiet one from day one. Then he lifted the box, and he was gone. The apartment felt wrong the moment the door shut. Too big, too still. His shoes weren't by the door anymore. His mug wasn't on the counter. I stood in the bathroom and saw the note I'd taped up weeks ago. Please respect shared spaces. For some reason, it looked childish now. I peeled it off, crumpled it, and tossed it in the trash. Back in the kitchen, I opened my phone and typed, "Me. Thanks again. For everything." A few minutes later, the screen lit up. Ethan. Anytime. Good luck this semester. That was it. Simple. I set the phone down and told myself it didn't matter. He'd just been a roommate, and housing had finally done what I'd asked for. It was supposed to feel like relief. But the place was too quiet. His side of the counter looked wrong, the shelf too bare. I told myself it was fine, safer this way. At least, that's what I kept trying to believe.